Now you all know. Recording, recording. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. For those of you who are watching the recording, I just gave folks a little rundown of how we're going to do tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. First of all right, perfect. Now, on the shared screen, can you all see the slides? Yes, excellent. Who needs a millennial? This person doesn't need a millennial. Anyways, so finding your why. So I'll be talking about that, like I mentioned a moment ago, as well as setting some goals and making shift happen. All right. I'm always so worried that I'm going to mess that up somehow and say the other word. Uh oh, where's my cursor? Maybe I do need a millennial because my cursor went away. All right. So let's talk about discovering your why. Of course, you can ask yourself, like, okay, why did I sign up for Shred Strong? What was my reasoning behind it? What was my intention? What was kind of what I thought was going to happen with the program, or what are my expectations with the program? All right. So ask yourself that first initial why. Then it's going to be a matter of honestly just diving deeper. So diving deeper, because that first layer of the why is just kind of, it's just the skin of the onion, for lack of a better way to put it. And we do want to keep peeling back the onion skin to get to that core why. So keep asking why. And usually it's suggested that you ask why 3 to 5 times. And with each why, you keep diving a little bit deeper with each step. So, example, I signed up for Shred Strong because I wanted to get strong on the bike. Great, you're in the right place. Why do you want to get strong on the bike? Oh, because my climbs kind of feel gnarly right now. They don't feel, I don't feel as strong on my climbs, and I want to get stronger on my climbs. Well, third why. Why do you want to get stronger on your climbs? So I'm not sucking wind. I don't know. That's usually my reasoning behind that, because I have vocal cord dysfunction. So, I am usually a little sensitive to elevation and things like that and climbing. So, that's ultimately my why is not because I don't want to suck wind, but my next step is because I feel so much better. I feel much better after my climbs and after my longer rides, like I'm not completely zonked and completely taxed anymore like I used to be, several years ago. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand, like just diving deeper and keep asking why for every single step to go a little bit deeper. And sometimes it can be something that's really at your core, like maybe you have kids. And I have several clients who have children, and they're at various ages, various stages of their lives, and they honestly want to live a long time, or as long as they can control for their kiddos. And I don't have kids, so I can't, that doesn't resonate for me. I have a dog and I have a partner, so I want to live a long life for them. But everyone's why is going to be different. Now, what I recommend is once you discover and you boil down that ultimate why for you, write it down. Write it down, because you want to be able to see it and you want to be reminded, because I will tell you, even if it is your core why and your core belief, you're going to forget about it. And, there's nothing wrong with, obviously, excuse me, forgetting about it, but it's just one of those things where we need that constant reminder. It's kind of like why they want you to do gratitude practice, or why experts suggest that you do gratitude practice daily, is because, well, first of all, it's a skill that you can work on, but also because sometimes we forget to have gratitude, or we forget what we're grateful for because it becomes so natural for us. So it's nice to have that daily reminder with your why. All right. I actually have a why that is on a post-it note. And oh, let me let Sarah in. Hold on one second. Oop. So I have a why that's on a post-it note with my derpy dog and partner. But my why is on a post-it note. It's literally on my desk, and it's just there to remind me. And it's just past my second monitor, so I can see it every day when I'm at my desk, when I'm getting tired, when I, maybe I've had a longer day, of kind of working and things like that. So it's nice to just have that reminder. Oh, Helen, I see your question. Hold on one second. But it's just nice to kind of have that reminder visible constantly, to where I'm just like, oh, I'm not too tired to bike. Like, let me at least try 5 minutes, or let me at least get the warm up going with my workout and things like that. And then I can kind of go from there. Okay. Helen asked, is it advisable to have one why versus like a handful? I personally think that having one why is going to be most important. But if you have another important reason, then by all means, add it in. But I wouldn't recommend more than two because then usually the human brain, we're kind of simple beings. We're complex but simple beings, but we can get very easily overwhelmed. So anything usually over like two or three things can be a little overwhelming. So what I usually recommend is stick with one. You can add in a little sub why if you want to, and and go from there. All right, cool. Now let's talk about goals. So I know the why is pretty basic, but it is kind of a basic concept. But I will tell you one thing right now before I go into goals. Having your why dialed is paramount for those days where you're unmotivated, you're overworked, you're tired, kids are sick, maybe you're sick or something. Well, if you're sick, you should be taking a rest day. But just to kind of give you an example, when motivation is low, which motivation is very fleeting, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like they need to depend on motivation because it is such a fleeting thing. So I don't want folks to kind of depend on motivation to just show up because it's a finicky little thing. But I do really recommend having that why to help you feel motivated and to help you kind of give you that little extra spark to go one step further. All right. So just in case you were wondering why I was talking about whys, that was kind of redundant, but this is why. The why is incredibly important because it is really at the root of everything. So goals. Now, in my readings over the years, I have talked to and read about a lot of like James Clear, a lot of material from BJ Fogg. I will say BJ Fogg is hands down one of the top researchers when it comes to habit development. And if you're interested, it's BJ, so BJ, kind of like box jump, um, Fogg, Fogg. But he's a Stanford researcher, if I'm not mistaken. And James Clear takes a lot of BJ Fogg's information and research and puts it in his book, Atomic Habits, which, if you've ever read, it's a very good read. And it really helps you kind of boil down your habits and things like that. So, when it comes to goals, it all really comes down to the difference between your goals and your systems. And let me explain. James Clear really suggests or recommends that you focus on your systems and processes instead of making your goals the main thing to focus on. So let me kind of explain this a little bit further. His understanding with goals is that they can ultimately minimize your overall happiness, and it's generally because you're only happy if you achieve your goal. Case in point, common one, I want to lose 10 pounds. See this especially a lot with females, and I've also said that myself because I've been overweight a couple of times in my life, and it's one of those situations where we'll say, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds, cut and dry. What happens when you don't lose 10 pounds? But you're losing inches, you're gaining energy, you're increasing energy, you're eating better. What happens when you're sleeping better, when you're feeling less stressed? Are those things obsolete because you're not losing the 10 pounds? Dare I say that these things, which are kind of in line with a little bit of the processes to lose the 10 pounds, quote unquote, lose the 10 pounds, sometimes we can get blinded because we're so focused on the goal at hand that, then if you do happen to lose a couple of pounds, then you keep moving the goalpost. And I'm just using weight loss as an example because I think it's something that unfortunately a lot of us can kind of relate to some degree. But it's one of those things where if we keep moving the goalpost, we're just prolonging the happiness when we could be happy right now if we're focusing on the process. So it's exhausting AF, as I mentioned here, to keep moving that goalpost. So the solution to this is really to commit to the processes rather, and systems, and not ultimately the goal. So goals tend to prohibit your long-term success. So I want you to focus on letting go of immediate results because we're not Amazon Prime, unfortunately. Believe me, I wish things could be available at like a snap of your fingers. But goals generally aren't Amazon Prime. So you want to be able to let go of the immediacy Practice the patience, practice the persistence when it comes to increasing your strength, when it comes to increasing your durability on and off the bike, and then focusing on the processes and systems, which I'll kind of explain a little bit more here as we go. And the third point here is, goals make you think that you can control everything in your life. And I mean, this isn't a newsflash for anyone here, I think that's present tonight. You can't, unfortunately. I mean, you can definitely control certain aspects, like maybe the food that you're eating, how much water you're drinking. You can try to control how much sleep you're getting. I'm sorry if you have a newer child or a child maybe under like 12 years old, because I know that that obviously changes things. Or if you have like a sick and ailing, parent or pet or something like that, that can obviously impact your sleep. So even those things that you think you might have more control over, like your sleep, for example, you might not have as much control over as you might think. But it's just a nice reminder to say like, hey, I don't have control over everything. But the solution here is when you figure out your systems and processes, which I'll dive into a little bit more, then you basically what James Clear and other researchers talk about is try to use some small feedback loops is what they call it. And this is where you work to assess the current situation and assess how well your processes and systems that you have in place are working for you every day to get to ultimately your goal. All right. And assessing with those small feedback loops really help you truly know and not guess what is going on, because then it gives you an idea of like, oh, okay, this thing that I do every day, this process or system that I do every day, it might not be working for me. So let me go ahead and dial it back a little bit or choose something different. All right. And again, we're just kind of cracking the crust a little bit, like on a creme brulee. All right. I relate things to food a lot. But we're just kind of cracking the crust right now. And it's just a matter of kind of like scratching the surface. Okay. Now, this isn't to say that goals are completely useless because they definitely are useful. Hold on, let me let Pia in. I know she had some patience. So she had some work she had to wrap up. Hey, Pia, thanks for joining. We're just talking about goals. Very fun stuff here. But goals are not completely useless. They're really great for planning your progress, but ultimately, and I can't emphasize this enough, the processes and systems that you have in place are really what make you progress. So there's a big difference between planning your progress with a goal and then actually making them reality by making them happen through whatever your systems and processes are that you have every day. And I'll give you some examples. That way you know what the hell I'm talking about. Because goals really, they're kind of your North Star. They give you some direction, and sometimes they can help you motivate, sure, because you can kind of see what's going to happen. And you can imagine the big picture with your goal. But having a system or process in place is what makes the difference. Okay. And let's talk about that. And James, another quote from him is just like, a better way to achieve your goals is to set a schedule to operate by rather than a deadline to perform by. So I wanted to put this quote in here because this is something I always keep coming back as a reminder for myself when it comes to like goal setting time, especially at the beginning of the year and things like that. It's one of those situations where, let me move this chat box real quick. It's one of those situations where, you know, if you only live by goal, then you think of that as a deadline, right? And that's kind of the end game is that goal post, like I talked about a moment ago before you start to move it. But in order to get to that goal, you have to have these little steps and these daily things that you do, or weekly things that you do, or monthly things that you do. In our case, it's generally going to be weekly. Uh, you know, those are the things that start to add up and start to get you, that 1% better every single day once you start to kind of move towards that. All right. So think about the processes and systems that you put in place daily, weekly, monthly. Those are the things that actually make everything happen. All right. Now, my screen. Hold on. There we go. So, what you need in order to focus on your goals. Generally, just like like Helen asked earlier, should you only have one why? Really, you should only try to have one goal. You know, if anything, if you have three goals, for example, try to rank them A, B, and C. I don't even like ranking one, two, and three. So I like to rank, especially if you have multiple races during the year or during the season in 2022. always try to have an A race, a B race, and a C race. And the C race is kind of like just a training race, just to kind of get you used to everything. Your A race is ultimately going to be your number one thing that you're aiming for to do well and perform well at that year. Just use racing as an example, even if you're not racing, because I think it's kind of easy to understand. But same thing with goals. Focus on one thing at a time and try to avoid goal competition. And when I say goal competition, I'll use myself and my CrossFit athletes as an example. Goal competition generally for those particular types of athletes are, I want to deadlift 500 pounds. I'm just kind of talking about, like, sorry, that was kind of extreme. Let me pick another one. Like, I want to deadlift 150 pounds. Sorry, I work with some power lifters like Zach Helen, and Zach does deadlift over 500 pounds. So he's an exception. He's professional. Don't do that at home. But maybe you want to like deadlift 100 pounds, and then you also want to be able to do 30 unbroken. Think about a gymnastics movement, like a muscle up, or something on the parallel bars, or the rings, or something kind of extravagant, right? They tend to be kind of opposites. Or you want to run a sub 2 hour marathon, which is like practically impossible, and you also want to deadlift 500 pounds. So those they don't go well together with the kind of training that you all are doing. So try to avoid having goals that compete with one another and could snuff out the other one, right? So basically, you want to just be particular with your goal selection, right? Second point here is I want you to focus on taking massive action. And I don't it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's hard for me to say because, type A personality, I want things to be right. I mean, if you all have realized this or not, I have a guidebook. I have like emails that I have sent out. I have everything organized. So everything's kind of in like silos to keep things organized and keep you all organized as well. And here's the thing, there are some times where you just have to put something out and it's not going to be perfect. Maybe there's even going to be a typo in it. Not going to be super happy about it, but being consistent with showing up is really what's going to happen. Or it's really where the change is going to take place. So taking that massive action, even if it is imperfect, but you keep doing it consistently, that is where you're definitely going to start, getting closer to those goals that you're striving for ultimately. So I always like to say that consistent imperfect action is better than infrequent imperfect action. So just keep consistent as hell. And of course, set a schedule. So when you go to take massive action, try to set a schedule to take action towards your goals. And this is where the systems and processes fall into place, which I'll give some examples here in a minute. Next point here is align your environment with your goals. So I'm going to use, a common goal that I think a lot of us have right now, myself included. My goal is to get at least days 1 and 2 of the strength training done every week. And, I mean, I'm doing the same programming that you all are doing. So I'm doing that with you. I am doing, however, different intervals. So if you do follow me on Strava, I do different intervals because I'm always testing the intervals in advance, usually by a couple of weeks. And I'm also just doing some other things, that are useful for me with my coach, because she has me on a certain plan and we're just testing some things out. So just to keep that in mind for you all. But I'm always doing the same strength training. My coach doesn't do anything. I enjoy programming for strength because I actually like to work my weaknesses and weaknesses that I see in other folks. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a weakness in terms of like it's a strength that you need to make a strength, or something that you need to make into a strength. But I do hire someone to force me to do intervals because that is the one thing. And as a coach, I'll go ahead and admit this. Intervals are the one thing that I will sometimes skate out on. And it's unfortunate because I know how useful they are. And I've seen like massive changes whenever I am consistently doing intervals. And versus not doing intervals, I've seen dramatic changes in my riding. But still, it's one of those things where I'm like, do I have to do intervals today? So please know, I'm human. And I may be a coach and I do this for a living, but I am human. And that's why I believe in coaching. I hire my own coach, and she does intervals for me. So it's nice to have that accountability. So hopefully that makes you all kind of feel a little bit better. Um, but aligning your environment with your goals. So an example for this is, say, you want to get those 2 strength workouts in per week. That's your goal. Well, in order to align your environment with that, you want to make the action of getting to your workouts twice a week, or getting to at least 2 strength workouts every week, easier. So for me, that's always setting out my workout clothes the night before, kind of like when I was in elementary school, and my parents made me set out my clothes for the next day. Same kind of thing. So I actually set out my workout clothes. That way I can go ahead and get my strength workout done. Like, I'll go ahead and put on my workout clothes because I pretty much live in these, which I know is not everyone's situation, but I put on my workout clothes, so I at least have them on for the day. And then I know what day, based on when my phone calls are and my coaching schedule is, I know what day or what time of the day I'm going to be getting that session in. All right. But step number one is having your environment, having literally your immediate environment in your house, in your room, in favor of and support your goal and support those processes and systems that you have in place. So this is one system that you're putting in place for your goal, is to set out your workout clothes earlier and set them out, and then just put on the workout clothes, or put them in your bag if you do go into the office right now, or whatever. I know there's quite a few of us working from home and things like that, but that will at least get you one step closer and setting you up for success. Another idea is to pack a pre-workout snack. That way you're not going into the workout hungry or anything like that. So aligning your environment to match up with your goals is really, really important. Okay. And then the last step that I hinted on the last slide is to measure the progress of your systems that you have in place. So, assess, reassess, and then shift. Shift is one of my favorite words, because it's just a matter of you pivoting a little bit, and measure to see if you are showing up for yourself, and are you actually spending time on what matters when it comes to your goals. And that last point here is incredibly important, and that's to decide what you spend your time on and what you want to spend your time on, because really your priorities do set the tone for the day. And this is why it's incredibly important for you to check in with yourself throughout the day and see if what you're doing is in alignment with your goals. And I'll go ahead and flash this up. Phone. I don't think the phone is evil. I don't think social media is evil. But I do especially think that in the last couple of years, we have tended, myself included, have tended to become a little bit of doom scrollers. Or, it's kind of like, because we're in this state of anxiety, maybe even like a little bit of depression or what have you, you're just feeling a little bit down. Because you want to counteract that, social media and your phone is a dopamine hit. So I'm just going to say it like it is. And it is dopamine hit to go on Instagram and FaceTime and see some likes and see some comments and interact with people, because it does bring you joy. But so I'm not saying not to do that, but I am saying just to be aware of how much time you're spending doing certain things, whether it is doom scrolling or, chatting with your friends, which is incredibly important for community and connection. Or, maybe you're kind of playing video games. I'm just trying to think about other things that we could maybe distract ourselves with. And again, there's nothing wrong with these things, but it's just a matter of being aware of, how much time you are spending on these items and on these tasks. Okay. And I always like to say, you don't really need more time. You just need to decide. So based on that last slide here, where you're really trying to set your priorities to set the tone for the day, and checking in with yourself to make sure that what you're doing in that moment is in alignment with your goals. That's where, you don't need more than 24 hours in the day. You just need to decide kind of what your action is that you're taking in that moment. Okay. Now, the next slide is just to talk about when life goes sideways. But I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit deeper about processes and systems, to give you some ideas on what the hell I'm talking about, or what James Clear is talking about, or BJ Fogg, or other researchers when it comes to habit stuff. And it's ultimately habits and processes. So I'll give you an example. Obviously I'm also a nutrition coach and things like that, health coach. So my priority with myself is generally longevity. But when I was going through some weight loss phases, for example, when I was overweight, my main priorities were some non-negotiables that I had in place. So it was always to hydrate, stay hydrated. It was always to include a protein at every meal, just as an example. And then Usually the third one varies. At the time I was in corporate world, I actually had high blood pressure while being overweight. I wasn't exactly, the picture of health. Um, so my third thing that was non-negotiable was usually to do some sort of stress management. So, because I was just your girl here had to bring down her high blood pressure, so that was my effort to do that. So the things that I put in place, my systems and my processes, aligned with those three non-negotiables for me, and it was to prep protein at least twice a week. So that was one of my processes on a weekly level. And then on a daily level, my process was okay, great. If I'm making lunch, I'm going to pick a protein and add it in. I'm going to make a batch breakfast thing, like an egg bake or something like that, which I still eat to this day. Uh, and, that's going to be my protein for breakfast, for example. And, but yeah, you know, that's one way I did protein as my non-negotiable. That was my process for that particular non-negotiable to get to the goal of living healthier, maybe trying to shed some pounds. I mean, really, I just wanted to, honestly, more important than losing the weight was to bring my blood pressure down because uh, cardiac stuff runs in my family a lot. And, my grandfather died of a massive heart attack. I never even had the chance to meet him. And then I had an uncle in the last few years who also had a massive heart attack. He had a widowmaker. Knock on wood, he survived. But it's one of those situations where more important than losing weight was getting my blood pressure back down to a healthy level. So don't worry, it is back down to a healthy level. In case anyone is wondering, I'm fine now. But it is one of those situations where that was my step, was to focus on protein, and build a habit around that, and then add in some vegetables around that to help with like fiber and just health and nutrients and things like that. And then the other thing was water. So my step to get to my water goal. So my goal was like, I think 80 ounces a day of water. And please know mine's a little bit higher just because I'm prone to kidney stones since I was a kid. But it's one of those things, since my goal ultimately is 80 ounces of water, great. My system that I have in place is to drink a big glass of water when I wake up in the morning. So I'll get up, go to the bathroom, and I drink a big glass of water. So that's a process or a system that I have in place, again, to get to my goal. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? Okay, good. Because I know that sometimes can be probably the most difficult thing to comprehend. Fanny, I know you're like, you never imagine me being overweight. Yes, a couple times in my life I have. I'm 42. It's fine, and it's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of when it started to impact my heart health. That's when I needed to make a change. So that, and honestly, the stress of my job, the last career. All right, so we're good with goals. We can come back. I'm gonna do Q&A, because next I really want to talk about what you do when life goes sideways and you're just overwhelmed. My biggest advice, and I take this advice to heart as well, is just choose 1 to 2 days a week that work best with your schedule. So look at your meeting schedule, because we all know meetings are going to probably pop up on your calendar at the last minute, because I know that all too well. But choose 1 to 2 days a week that work best with your schedule, and don't force it. So try to drop the idea of like, oh, never miss a Monday, or whatever the fitness industry usually likes to say is, don't miss a Monday. No, honestly, I ride my bike a lot on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm moving a lot, or I'm doing a lot of yard work, so it's kind of exhaustive over the weekends. So honestly, Mondays are usually like a rest day, or Tuesdays is a rest day. But that's what I mean by don't force this. Don't force like a day that might not be ideal if you have to go pick up the kids, or if you have to go grocery shopping or something like that. Maybe that's just not the day, excuse me, that you're doing one of those strength workouts. Okay. So be selective, choose at least one, hopefully 2 days to do your strength, and then focus on getting through at least 30 to 40 minutes of that, you know? And what I mean by that is do the warm up, and you'll even see this in the instructions under the program tab, which is the kettlebell icon in the app. You'll see I say something, and I'm trying to make my wording consistent week to week, but you'll see where I say like, hey, just get through the warm up, get warmed up, and then do the main strength lift. Maybe start to do some accessory work, whatever you can fit in the time that you're needed or the time that you're able to do this. Okay. And then, of course, do your bike rides, even if it means you have to skip your intervals that week because you're just so overwhelmed, but you want to do a casual ride. Like I have someone who does a Taco Tuesday ride with their group down in Arizona. And that's their fun ride because she gets to do some technical features and things that is fun for her. That's skill work that's really important for her and her goals. So, yeah, do that. Do the rides that bring you joy. If you have a buddy ride or a buddy that you like to ride with, frequently, by all means, do that. Or if you're a climber, you do some indoor climbing. I know we have a few people in the group that do that as well. Winter's coming up, so it's perfect time for indoor climbing. But the point here is to do some sort of favorite cardio or something that brings you joy. Because guess what? If you're feeling really overwhelmed emotionally and physically, doing something that brings you joy is really going to help you just feel better overall and have you feel less stressed. Okay. And same thing with workouts, even though it is technically a stressor to your body, it will ultimately help you feel less stressed. Okay. I'm a big fan of walking. And I know, roll your eyes and stuff like that, but walking is a low impact movement and it does de-stress you, especially if it's after dinner. It's great if you do have a dog, by all means, walk the dog. But even any type of movement, doing laundry, doing something that will get you kind of moving and get you just moving your body intentionally is going to be incredibly important. So I wanted to put in walking here because it's accessible for a lot of folks. And then last but certainly not least is taking rest days and prioritizing recovery and stress management, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And this is the last one. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's the last one. So recovery tips. Number one, sleep, damn it. It's going to be the number one thing is focus on your sleep if you can. Make quality sleep a priority. And I'm not going to give you a minimum hours, to try to aim for, but I will go ahead and say 7 is usually the magic number. 8 is obviously more ideal for people who are more active. But I will go ahead and say, just so hopefully I'm a little bit more relatable, I'm an awful sleeper because of my stress history. Um, and it's one of those things where it does definitely take intention rather for me to sleep well. So I usually try to aim for 7 hours at a minimum. That's my magic number. I feel great. Like when I have 7 hours, I feel amazing, and I pretty much feel unstoppable. But I will say when my training does pick up, which it will, especially, yeah, I'm guessing like January, February. So I'm going to be getting probably more miles, whether it's on my gravel bike or indoor or something like that. I'm going to need to increase my sleep, even if it is just increasing my sleep on the weekends or on Fridays or something like that. I will have to choose probably 2 to 3 days a week to increase my sleep to 8 hours if I can. So sleep, that's the first thing. It's going to be so important. Definitely take 1 to 2 rest days every week if you can, because that's going to be really beneficial. Even if on your one rest day that you take a week, if it does include like a light hike, emphasis on the word light, I do want you to kind of move your body and maybe don't like Netflix and chill on the sofa with bonbons. But if you need that and you need to just kind of relax 100% and one of my powerlifting buddies calls it Sloth Sunday. So she and her husband are really big powerlifters, and they do a sloth Sunday every Sunday, and it's literally like they actually order Domino's pizza, and even with breadsticks, and they watch a couple movies, and they spend time with their dog, and the extent of them because they live in Hawaii, such assholes, right? But their extent is they go out for a hike in Maui, but then they come back and have some pizza. And please know, like, these are incredibly healthy individuals, but I'm just using this as an example because this is the spectrum. You get to choose where on the spectrum you want to be. Now, do I recommend eating pizza every day and having a sloth Sunday every day? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying, like, maybe there is one day a week where if you've worked out intensely and maybe you find you haven't eaten enough, then great. Maybe that does entail you possibly eating something that is a little bit more enticing for you for that meal. For me, it's always bison burgers, homemade bison burgers. So the next point is incredibly important, talking about nutrition. What I just mentioned. Again, don't have, maybe don't recommend having like insanely processed foods. every day, or fast foods every day, but do try to have your most of your diet, at least 80-90% of your diet to be whole foods. And I don't mean the grocery store. I do mean like just things that are, apples, bananas, things with just a little bit less ingredients, or things that are a little bit closer to the source of where they come from. Um, you know, for me, I mean, I'm sure you all have seen some of my posts recently. Yeah, I have some cheese puffs with lunch here and there, or sometimes if I'm in a pinch, like today I came back from the gym kind of late. Um, you know, and it's one of those things. I have these frozen burritos from frozen bean and cheese burritos from Whole Foods that I love, and but that's my go-to quick meal if things kind of go sideways. So I always have backup plans if things go sideways. But that burrito has just a handful of ingredients, and it really makes me feel good, makes me feel satisfied, and it gave me energy to do this tonight. But I'm just giving you some ideas, on kind of knowing that there should be some flexibility there. Hydration, try to aim for at least half of your body weight in pounds. Try to aim for 50% of that in ounces of clear liquids. You can also include coffee in that if you want to, because they're finding it's not really that much of a diuretic. But for every hour that you do sweat on and off the bike, do try to have at least, preferably like close to 16 ounces of water, as much as you can. Uh-oh, the monitor just went away. There we go. You're back. But definitely try to stay hydrated. That will keep your energy up. That will help with digestion. That will help with performance and all that stuff. And then obviously mobilize, stretch, work through those ranges of motions, kind of like what I do include in the unwind programming for, hips, low back, things like that. And then last but not least, manage stress as best as possible. Now, of course, our opinion about stress is going to impact how stressed we do feel. So if we think of stress as a negative thing, that's obviously going to change your perspective on it. Okay. But I want you to start to think about stress as being almost like the ability to have stress in your life is a little bit of a hashtag blessing. I don't want to say that, but like it can be a positive thing if you view it like that. Because sometimes our perspective of the stressor is actually what can cause more of the stress in internally. So, stress is certainly not avoidable, but you can certainly manage your perspective on stress as well as manage how you manage the stress. So that's why I do include, kind of the hippy dippy things in the wind downs or the unwind programming in Shred Strong. That includes the parasympathetic breathing. That includes the stuff that will help lower your heart rate, help lower your blood pressure, and can really ultimately just help you feel good and a little bit less de-stressed after your workouts. And I also wanted to put a plug in here that belly breathing and the parasympathetic breathing that I have in the programming, you might find it could be helpful for low back pain. And this is a might. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist, but it is certainly something that physical therapists that I work with, like Zach, we always, in fact, today we even talked about it during my appointment about how important the breath is when it comes to just down regulating. Okay. So that was a lot because I actually was going to do these last two slides in the next presentation, but I really wanted to set everyone up for success right out of the gate as best as I could. Okay. So I'm going to bring you off mute and I'm going to close this and stop sharing my screen. So yeah, feel free to unmute and ask any questions you might have when it comes to stuff. Let me see if I can bring you all up. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? I'm telling you, I need a millennial here. Of course, my partner's one, but she's busy right now. So yeah, unmute and let me know what questions you have. Trying to not share my screen. Stop.
I agree.
So I can see you all.
Mm.
Hi, Liz.
I love tamales, so I'm with her. Fanny
Yes.
on this.
You're speaking of Fanny. Yeah, you're speaking of Fanny. Oh, it's Fanny. What is it? Oh, I missed it. Where did tamales fall in this? I mean, honestly, especially since because is it your mom's tamales? I mean, come on. I've bought your mom's tamales. They're I'm trying not to curse as much. They're freaking amazing. I mean, honestly, they're homemade, And honestly, it's one of those things where, and you know how I feel about like cultural, like the importance
Yeah.
of what is important for you, like culturally and with, our heritage. I come from a big Jewish family, so like we love pierogies. So with sour cream, not the best thing in the world. But am I having pierogies with sour cream all the time? No. So honestly, the tamales, I mean, they're probably even healthier than my pierogies, to be honest. Um, I mean, are you eating the tamales at every meal?
Me too.
I
Don't worry about
mean,
it.
I'll be honest, like
Yeah.
I could probably sit down and have a dozen of tamales in one sitting. It,
Her
it's
tamales are
probably
good.
bad. I mean, they're great.
They're so
I'm biased. They're my mom's
But
tamales.
but your partner will not let you eat that many.
Oh, right. Well, you know what? Do you like? I'm going to throw something out, but I love tamales with like um, green chili
good.
or
Oh yeah.
something like that. And I don't know, maybe if you load it up with something that's not, or is green chili just as bad?
No, green chili's great. It's basically just, I mean, it's basically like a
Thinking offset
vat
it.
of vegetables.
Like, so one of the hardest things for me is like obviously like trying to fit my mom's cooking. So if you don't already know this by now, I'm super spoiled. I don't cook at all. My boyfriend cooks for me or my mom cooks for me. And my mom is like traditional like Mexican where like she'll say one day it's like, oh, you're not eating enough. Here's a huge plate. And then like the next second it's like, oh, whoa, you're eating too much. But she'll still feed you like two or three like amounts of what you should
Mhm.
be eating. Like I actually don't eat tortillas. Trying to compensate, trying. But like tamale season's right around the corner, so that's kind of like my big like kryptonite for me personally.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
why.
Yeah, and that's funny. Beth's having tamales tonight for dinner. Um, so yeah, it's one of those things where, like being Mexican, it's incredibly important, Fanny. And you know how I feel about like cultural foods, like include them. Maybe, don't have, again, like I said, like tamales for every single meal. Maybe Christmas time, because the Christmas tamales are amazing. But it is one of those things where maybe not having the dozen and then having like a breakfast tamale, with like a side of some eggs or a side of whatever, kind of to add it to it. So think about adding to it. So I'm a real big on like, what can I add to my meals to enhance them? And generally, like lately, I've been on, it's gonna sound so bougie. I've been on an arugula kick lately, because I've just been like, I'm just trying to find ways to like just put some greens on there. And if Chris was on here, he'd give me a hard time. Um, he referenced like the Obama Gate situation, the arugula gate situation. Like, have you seen how expensive arugula is nowadays? Anyways, um, it's kind of a side joke, but arugula is fun and it's easy, it's spicy. So I like spicy greens because I don't really care too much for bitter greens. And sometimes bitter greens, being from the South, like the greens in the South are usually quite bitter. Um, so I add to the meal that I already have. So like the burrito that I had before I came on, I had some arugula. I had a side arugula salad with it. So I added that to it, if that kind of makes sense. So just try to think of like, okay, a tamale, it's incredibly important to me. I want to have that, but what can I maybe add to it to enhance it a little bit better and kind of make it fit for my goals? And generally, it's usually adding protein or adding non-starchy vegetables can enhance something that is inherently already going to have like some carbs and fats and things like that, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So cool, 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 cool. Beth, I hope your tamales are incredibly delicious this evening. Um, what other questions?
So
And
okay, I have one
yes,
about the workout.
yes,
Okay.
do ask.
Um, so I typically do it at Planet Fitness, and I have discovered that they actually don't have just single barbells. When we're doing the um, deadlifts, are we okay with doing them with the Smith machine? I know it's to
Mhm.
me it's a little bit more awkward personally because
Yeah,
I feel like I can't get as slow because of where
you
it
can't.
stops.
Yeah, you can't. That's the only downside with the Smith machine is it's on a track. So for those of you that don't know what a Smith machine is, it's basically like a thing that the barbell is attached into the machine. So you're stuck on this track that is literally a straight up and down, or it can be slightly angled, depending on the manufacturer. Generally speaking, they're usually a little bit angled. So it can be a little bit weird. You can certainly deadlift. Now, you said you're at a 24-hour fitness.
Planet Fitness.
Oh, Planet Fitness, darn. Because
Yeah.
sometimes 24-hour fitnesses have trap bar deadlifts, which if everyone in this group could have a trap bar deadlift or a trap bar, I love trap bars. I don't even have one, so I have to use the one at my gym. But they're great, especially for mountain bikers. And oh, Xander, he's joining late. But that's okay. He might have gotten different. Rob might have gotten in a different. Hey, Rob, welcome. But I will say, you can do the Smith machine for your deadlifts, especially if you want to do the barbell version, or you can do heavy dumbbells. That would be another option, is to do like heavy dumbbells for the deadlifts, one in each hand. And then my suggestion with the Smith machine for the deadlift is that because it is going to go on a certain track, you're going to want to play around with it, because there is one direction, and I can't remember because it's been a little while since I've been on a Smith machine. There is one direction that you're facing, depending on which way the track is going, up and down, that will be more comfortable for deadlifts. So you might have to experiment a little bit more, and feel free to use that as an opportunity. Excuse me, sorry, the burrito is coming up with the arugula salad. But it is going to be incredibly important for you to kind of play around with it, and feel free to use that time to send me videos and see what kind of looks more comfortable for you. Okay. But ultimately, yes, you can.
Okay, perfect.
Helen has a question about finding the why. So she's having trouble. It isn't showing up clearly in words, but it's more of a sense or a feeling of I need to do strength work, and I need to help with the willpower. Hold on one second. And this program is super helpful because it eases me in again. I'm glad. That makes me so happy, Ellen. It's helping me as well, because I took a little bit of a hiatus from training. Again, it's a sense more than clear articulation. I know I want to articulate something that's internally driven versus externally pulled. Do other folks have trouble articulating a why? I will try the layers of why, and as you go through, then definitely, see what resonates basically with what can pop up. Hey, Rob. Yeah, no, I figured, given that name, I figured it was you. It's a great question. I will say that sometimes it can be a feeling. The thing with feelings is, I think sometimes, especially if you work in science, which I used to work in, have to follow the data. We have to be hard. We have to be black or white. We have to be dead set. We have to be, straight on. And sometimes we fail to see the importance of how we feel. And that's why, like, even with my example that I mentioned earlier, with like weight loss, and sometimes we might not be losing weight, but maybe we're getting higher energy. But that's a feeling, because how do you gauge feeling more energy, right? There isn't really like an energy meter, like that you put your hands on and hey, I'm a 10 today, and oh, I'm a 6 today. But it's something you just innately feel. So certainly your why can be something that you innately feel. But, I will say this is when it could come in handy, having those like a why and a sub why, and maybe your sub why is just a little bit more objective instead of subjective. So subjective feelings versus objective, more data, if that makes sense. So, it's kind of one of those things where play around with it for sure, and then see what you come up with, and shoot me a message. Let me know what your why is, and we can kind of hash it out a little bit. All right. Sarah, you raised your hand. What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm wondering, you mentioned as part of the system assessing.
Yeah.
And so obviously there are ways we can assess, like, if I'm feeling great riding the bike and able to do more on that. As far as just this programming goes, is there any assessment built into this programming, or will there be, not being able to see into the future, having done it before, that will help with that as well?
Yeah. So there can be some assessments in terms of like ankle mobility and things like that. I will say I don't do 1 rep maxes. So that is one thing where my programming does change, is I don't focus on 1 rep maxes, because it's not really necessary for bikers, not really necessary for cyclists. Like how much we can deadlift, 1 rep max isn't really important, Now it is, of course, for me, because I have some personal goals, because I'm also a strength athlete. So I'm a barbell athlete as well. But I do know it's not really going to enhance, my ability to lift more isn't really what's going to enhance my biking, if that makes sense. So while there won't be 1 rep max, maxes built into the programming, there will be like usually 3 rep maxes, some 2 rep maxes, and 5 rep maxes. Those are going to be the most common things that you'll see. So what's cool is in the app, you'll be able to see like, oh, okay, that's what I lifted last time. And believe me, like some of the other apps I tested out over the years were they did not allow you to even see what you're previously lifting, which I don't even understand. But that's where you can definitely see. And actually, you might be able to see it. I know I can see your charts. So it actually charts a lot of stuff out for me as a coach, where I can see like, oh, their like deadlift is increasing, or their, whatever is increasing. So it's kind of like, especially if I think you might be like a data nerd as much as I am. So yeah, science, hashtag science. But it's one of those things where like the charts can be really helpful. I just can't remember what I can see as a client.
I'll have
'Cause I
to
haven't,
look.
yeah, I'll have to,
That.
yeah,
I do
see,
like charts.
yeah, see if what did you say?
I do like charts.
I know, I do too. Trust me. Well,
It does.
I'm gonna have to actually share a photo with you. Okay, remind me if I forget, but like remind me tomorrow, send me a message, but let me message you a photo that I took a couple days ago that was actually a chart where I was like, see, Sarah, like it's working. So I'll send it to you though. I'll send it to you. Just because I figured, oh, Beth, yeah, bye Beth. I know she has to go eat her tamales, but yeah, so no 1 rep maxes. Hopefully that answers your question. But there definitely will be like 3 reps and 5 reps, because we are having you kind of build up to a 5 rep right now. Now I'm not going to have you kind of do this right out of the gate, because that's also really unsafe. Even though I know some of you are experienced lifters, just because this is more of a group program, I just need to keep everyone's safety in check. And plus I want to see eyeballs on you for at least the first couple months before we do start testing a little bit more. So, and then you will also start to see if you have a power meter, or you have a Wahoo, or you have some sort of like indoor trainer that can tell you how many watts you're generating, you can also see that as well. Like I can see my averages, which I hate to live by averages, because average minds only live by averages. But you can start to see like the improvements with your power output and things like that if you have a power meter. But you don't have to spend money on a power meter, so don't do that. Go for it.
Yeah. So when, we're limited on time on the week or whatever, if we're trying to increase performance on a bike, what would you recommend when you have a choice, right? You have a choice for doing one thing, either cardio or strength. On a regular basis, would you just jump on the bike, or, do a strength session?
So it's just one day? You only have a chance for one day a
like,
week?
if you had a couple days a week only, right? Just because of meetings or work or life, whatever. Would you emphasize more strength or emphasize more cardio?
It's tough. Like for me, I will go ahead and say like what I do, and this is what I recommend. Try to at least do one of the intervals, or the interval session, and then do day 1. So day 1's always going to be the hinge movement or the deadlift movement. So that's going to be probably the least exhausting for you, in case you do get out and do a bike ride. That being said, though, if you're feeling insanely stressed and overwhelmed with work or life or whatever, right? And what will bring you joy is going and burning like maybe 20 miles and having a social ride with your friends, then by all means do that, especially if it is kind of like a one-off week. Like I'm just going to go ahead and say during the Shred Strong launch, my training definitely fell through the wayside the 2 weeks before Shred Strong came. And because we also just got a camper thing, and we were camping, and this was all new to me. And like my partner does not camp. She's never camped in her life. I mean, she has but she's not used to this. So it was a lot. So I was just like, I need to check out. I'm just going to do core today. I'm just going to do planks. Like literally I did the bare minimum just to keep me happy. So if that kind of makes you understand like, okay, I did the bare minimum of core and just some movement and like TRX and stuff. And then I did my fun ride every Sunday. Like that was one thing I tried not to give up, was that. you know, eh, it depends ultimately, but I think it's going to be a matter of you checking in with yourself, assessing like, hey, what's going to bring me more joy right now? Do I need to do a social ride because it's going to just make me happier and less
Yeah.
stressed? But if that's not even a possibility, then I would recommend the interval sessions and then day one strength. Yeah.
Yeah,
just
hopefully that
focus on
doesn't
those.
happen.
Yeah,
I just want to
but
ask.
still, it could, especially with holidays and things coming up. Like things
Travel.
can happen and travel. Yeah. And if maybe we get sick or something like that, it's one of those situations. I also had a COVID exposure actually. So, and it was my first COVID exposure in 2 years. So it was one of those situations where I'm negative. I was negative, but it was one of those situations where, I was like, well, shit, like now I can't go into the gym. Like, I mean, I could work out in my garage, but okay, that changes things. So, cause I still had to wait for the swabberoo
Mhm.
results to come back. So,
Cool. Yeah.
stuff happens. Yeah. But yeah, does that help?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Now that high school season's over, it'll be I have to pay attention to my own schedule, not the kids' schedule.
Exactly. Because what was your training like 2 days a week?
3 days a week.
3 days a week.
So in that sense, we didn't even have time for strength. It was just bike.
Yeah,
Right.
that's intense. And
then
for
racing.
those, yeah, and for those, because especially since we do actually have a couple of coaches in the group, some of them are in the Pacific Northwest and things like that, but still, they try to just at least do days 1 and 2, so they don't even do the
Yeah.
intervals because they
There's
honestly
enough.
and chasing like high schoolers like, or
Yeah.
middle schoolers is
Yeah.
kind of like intervals, honestly, like let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So they at least did the 2 strength sessions every week.
Cool. Yeah.
But I'm also going to be doing a program. You're actually the first people to hear about this, but I'm going to be doing a program for people during like the summer months that maybe do camp a little bit more, or they might just not be available to do things and go to a gym and like make that investment. I'm going to have like a kind of a reduced schedule programming where it will include like 2 core workouts, like core and glute and kind of like when I say core, I mean like, core, sure, but then also like low back as part of your core because you don't want to overbuild this because then you can start to have issues with this. And then
Yeah.
also your glutes and your hips are involved with that. Okay. And there's my photo or my pillow with Milo. So I'm going to have that as an option too after the 6 months. Like, hey, what are you all feeling? Like, this is certainly an option if you don't want to continue with the Shred Strong program. You can also do with this core program too, just during the summer months. Because I find that with a lot of folks, like during the summer months, they just kind of want something that's a little bit more manageable. And it's like shorter workouts. So they're like 10 to maybe 20 minutes long, tops, but usually they're right around 10 to 15 minutes, which is nice. So
Sounds cool.
questions, anybody?
I kind of have a small question, maybe
Yes.
might be twofold. So as far as how the program goes, when we're doing a workout, is it meant to be like completely exhausted by the end of the workout? Because there's a couple times where I've done it and it's just like I finish and I'm like, I have this feeling that I could have gone a lot
bit
harder.
more. Yeah.
And working at the gym, like for example, when we're doing the warm-ups and then we're doing the supersets, and then I have to go get a piece of equipment, like there's not a set break between one superset and the other. So it's like, do you want us to have all the equipment and just go like 3 sets of the superset and then straight to the other one? Because at the gym, I try to be courteous if there's people around. Like, obviously, I want to hog the equipment.
Yeah.
And
no, you should hog the equipment, Penny.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nobody else's workout counts but mine. But I try not to just kind of hog it. So it's like, by the time I get to that second superset, even if it's like a kettlebell that I need to go get, and it's like I might have to wait a little bit longer, so I have a longer rest period. Or like I said, should I hog the equipment and just like go all hard for it, or?
Yeah. So what I recommend, because it is like supersets are very common in the gym, especially if you are at Planet Fitness or 24-hour fitness, you'll see them, especially if they're on machines. They'll go from like leg extension to leg curl, and then the adductor abductor machine, right? And they'll usually circuit like those 3 machines, for example. So same thing with this particular type of workout, just kind of using the deadlift as an example, day 1 full body deadlift focus. The warm up, getting past the warm up, great. The first superset of hip thrusts and broad jumps, great. You can easily do those together. But once you start to include like equipment, so like the suitcase deadlift with the goblet reverse lunge, I would have like one of each weight that you might need, whether it's a dumbbell or kettlebell, have that readily available, and then have it right near you. That is completely kosher. I will go ahead and say, as someone who has, helped manage gyms over the years and helped kind of run gyms over the years, that is completely like that's a green light. Like that is completely fine. It's not like you're hogging like a ton of stuff. And I do that on purpose because it's kind of like trying to understand what a lot of folks will have access to in the gym, and try not to have you be a-holes, in the gym. But yeah, I would recommend for that particular superset, that you're doing, just as example, suitcase deadlifts with the goblet reverse lunge, because that just includes like 1 or 2 weights, maybe. Have those near you, and that's completely fine. Like, go ahead and do that superset, rest 60 seconds after that superset, go to the second superset, go to the third set of the superset. Then you do the ultimate rest between your supersets. And that's when you're maybe switching out equipment, and it might be 60 seconds, or it could be 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it is. I know for me, sometimes it's 2 or 3 minutes, especially if Zach is in the gym, because he and I start to talk about like the latest research that we've read, or whatever nerddom we want to talk about. But I'll get distracted in conversation, honestly. So, if the rest in between the main supersets is a little bit longer, that's totally fine. Because honestly, if anything, that gives you just more energy for the last superset. Now, I will say, because I did see a couple of your comments, especially the first week, where you were like, "Oh, I felt like I could have gone harder." Then I would recommend, especially now, because we're in the last 2 weeks of this cycle, so it's 4-week cycle, always, unless we have a deload. And first 2 weeks are, especially the first week, is getting used to the movements, getting used to kind of how everything works, getting used to how the app works, which of course is the learning curve. And then getting used to kind of what feels good for you in terms of like, what do you think might feel good for you to have 3 to 4 reps left in your tank until you fail. So kind of experimenting with that and seeing where that feels. And then going a little bit further. So the next week, then you're like, okay, you're using last week as a feedback. Okay, that was a little bit light. So you can always add comments to yourself if you want. I mean, just know I read the comments too. Like, I'm able to see the comments. So even though this is a group program, I do read people's comments in case people do have questions. If I miss a question, yeah, I know. You're like, oh, I didn't realize you could see this. It wasn't anything personal, so it's fine. I will say, if I do miss a question, please do message me the question too. So that is one thing, and I actually want to remind folks that, because I never want to miss a question. So I try to catch every comment, but sometimes my 42-year-old eyes can't see from looking at the screen all the time. But that being said, oh darn, I went on a tangent and I forgot where I was going with this. Supersets, do them together. It's fine. And then use the rest period to go back, put your stuff away, re-rack your stuff, clean it off, whatever the guideline is at your gym, and then prep for the next superset. So that would be my biggest suggestion, is don't worry about that, but then use last week's workout as feedback of, okay, I did 8 reps at 25 pounds. Then this week I'm going to try 10 reps at 25 pounds, or I'm going to try, maybe the first set you do 8 reps at 25 pounds or 10 reps at 25 pounds, just as an example of like goblet squats. And then next week, okay, I'm going to maybe try the 30 pounds or 35 pounds this week. So I don't want you to ever feel, yeah, bye Helen. It's good seeing you. I don't want you to ever feel like completely taxed by any means. But I do want you to at least feel like, oh, okay, I got a good workout. Like I feel really good, because I never want you to feel completely like you've redlined everything, because this isn't a HIIT workout or a boot camp or something like that. But I do want you to feel kind of worked, like, oh, I might feel that when I go to sit on the toilet tomorrow, or, I might feel that when I go to climb some stairs tomorrow, or something like that. And I'm only saying that because, those are questions that are natural to have. But yeah, I never want you to feel completely wrecked. And I never want you to feel like, oh, that was a little too easy, except on deload. On deload weeks, I want everyone's deload weeks to feel like you're just chilling, like you're just moving, and you're feeling really good. And it's kind of just fleshing out your body a little bit without anything heavy. Cool.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, of course. And if you don't think of a question, guess what? You can always ask me in the group chat. Oh, someone
Yeah, I
just
was
raised their
curious.
hands. Rebecca. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sandra. No, go ahead.
I didn't
Go
see my
ahead.
hand.
Or
Oh,
whichever.
simple question. Why
Yeah.
did you say the trap bar was better in the deadlift? I was kind of curious about that.
I was wondering if someone was going to ask. So I love flat bars. Like I do traditional, conventional barbell deadlifts and things like that. Trap bars, and Zach and I even talked about that during my PT session today. Trap bars are one of these things where you're in. So if people don't know what a trap bar is, it's basically like this thing that literally traps you in. So it has a piece of metal kind of circulating you. It's kind of hexagonal in shape, and then it has handles right near you, so right next by your side. The reason I love trap bar is it's one of the safest deadlifts for you to do, and not that deadlifts are inherently unsafe, because they're not, but a lot of people are worried about their low back during deadlifts because they know somebody like Joe down the corner blew out his back doing a deadlift, and chances are it's actually not the deadlift that blew out his back. It's probably the 20 times he bent over just to pick up a pencil off the ground or pick up his groceries with rounding his back and not supporting with his core. But people want to blame something, so they blame the deadlift. Now, the trap bar, it keeps, because of the nature, oh, that's my desk. It's a standing desk. So because of the nature of a trap bar, you're here. So I'm holding it right here by my side, but look, my back naturally is flat versus if I do go a little bit deeper, folks can sometimes get their low back maybe a little bit less secure. So trap bar is just going to be a little bit safer in terms of folks who maybe have hip injuries or low back injuries or some pains or things like that. Plus, I love the neutral grip. So your hands are facing this way, right next to you. That can be nice and just more comfortable for a lot of people. Excuse me, especially if you do have some wrist issues or some shoulder issues and your rotation of your shoulder can be compromised. But that being said, I also really like dumbbell deadlifts because you can do the same exact thing. So trap bar deadlift, guess what I'm doing? It's the same exact position if I have my dumbbells right next to me. And with dumbbells though, you have to control how deep you go in the deadlift, okay? I also like trap bars because you can do carries with them. So you can do trap bar carries. Those are great for grip work, especially like in the couple months leading up to like you chasing those middle schoolers and high schoolers. Like it's going to be great because then, especially if you do like to go to downhill parks, you're going to have a lot less like grip fatigue and things like that if you're doing heavier carries, which you can do heavy carries though with kettlebells and dumbbells and things like that. I don't know. I'm kind of old school, so I just love trap bar.
It looks cool.
Yeah, I'm just old school.
So if I'll be using more of a dumbbell to do
Yes.
those deadlifts, then you recommend them doing on the side versus putting them in front of me?
Honestly, it's up to you. It's up to you and your comfort level. Like right now, the suitcase deadlift is obviously going to be to your side, and I programmed in the suitcase deadlift on purpose because it's also a core workout. So it really helps with your core stability. Yeah, it really helps with core stability, and it helps with, especially if you have some low back pain and things like that, it really helps enhance that core strength. But I'll specify in the programming where I want you to put your hands, like if it's like pronated or off to the side or like neutral, and you'll see. But if something is uncomfortable, just let me know, and then you can obviously change it around if you need to. Okay. Rebecca, your hand is up. Can you unmute, or you want me to unmute you?
Yeah,
you
I can unmute.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
just
going on?
laying on my moon pod here.
Oh, I love it. Wait, what is this? Is this a
It's
that
a
a beanbag?
overpriced beanbag. Yeah.
It's called a moon
It's called a
pod?
moon pod. Don't
Oh.
overspend money on it, but it's
Oh,
good.
don't. Okay, never mind.
It's
What's your question?
it's an overpriced beanbag.
I love it.
So when you do 40-20 intervals, is there any gain or loss if you're doing stand up on the 40, standing up on the 40?
I mean, not really. Especially if you're
Because
outside.
obviously you don't usually stand when you're mountain biking. You just kind of can't. I don't know. At least I don't when I'm doing uphill.
Yeah.
But like it's easier when you stand on a stationary.
Mhm. It's preferred that you might keep your butt planted. Like that's preferred. Caveat
Yeah,
here.
but after an hour, my ass hurts. So, I mean, it just I need a break.
I mean, you're just being honest. You're like, my butt just hurts. Like my ass just needs a break. I mean, if you do need a break, if you've already gotten in a few intervals, seat it. By all means,
Yeah.
like if you have to do the last couple of sets of intervals, like getting up out of the saddle, do it because you've already gotten a lot of the reward and benefit from the earlier intervals
Okay.
of, keeping your butt planted.
Okay.
Do you,
if you
do you
do-
wear
Alright.
padded shorts?
Not when I do the interval
maybe at the gym.
training.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
because I don't want to have baboon butt at the gym.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that is a thing at the gym. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I, just don't want to wear my chamois shorts at the gym," which I can completely understand. Like I used to be a spinning instructor back in the day, and yeah, like I actually wore my Nike capris, but it's because we were up all the time, so we were out of the saddle all the time
Yeah.
and doing that fancy
Yeah.
shit.
I actually
Yeah.
wear my chamois to the gym, and I do get
Yeah.
looks, but my ass comfort level is more important than their looks.
It's either like ass comfort meter, like is that going to be more important or I don't know. And you can always change if that makes the decision a little bit better for you, Rebecca. You can always change. Or
Yeah.
you can put I don't know, basketball shorts over your chamois or mountain biking shorts over your chamois. I don't know.
I mean, I wear
Yeah.
padded shorts on it. I don't know. I just don't really care. It doesn't really bother me. It's more the pressure and the sitting.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I would much rather you have happy sits bones and happy
Yeah.
nether region.
Yeah.
Like I don't want that
I
to
think
be a
I would
complaint.
need like a 6-inch padding for my butt not to hurt. So.
I sent you the video for the bike fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if anyone
I
else
think
is
that would be
interested-
useful to post that for
Yeah.
everyone.
And I'm probably going to post it in the Facebook group and also in the chat because we do have a couple folks like Pia and others who aren't necessarily on
Mhm.
Facebook. So I still want them to have access to it. And it's basically just a short video. I did not do it because honestly, I told Rebecca, I was like, this is not my strength. Like I know enough to be
Mhm.
dangerous when it comes to bike fit, but I am not a certified bike fitter. So I don't like I can look at you generally and say, yeah, we might need to raise this or lower that. Like I can give you generalizations, but I'm not like certified. But there are some really good videos that are like less than 5 minutes long that I can share with you all. That might give you some good tips if you are doing an indoor cycle session on like a bike at your gym
Mhm.
or whatever. And maybe it's not your usual bike. But yeah, hopefully that'll help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Go back to your moon pod.
I'm already on it.
I love it.
You got to keep it interesting so I stay awake.
Hey, I get it. I totally get it. All right. Any other questions before we sign off? And again, if you think of a question after we finish, just send it in the group chat. It's totally fine.
Do you recommend actually getting the Wahoo Smart Trainer, the kicker, or versus their bike?
I think just the smart trainer personally. Because here's the thing. So there's two arguments, obviously, because you can get the bike, and then guess what? You don't have to mess with your own bike. My argument is I live in Denver, which is like a growing metropolis of bike theft. So I like the idea of having my expensive bike on my trainer in my room because if someone's going to steal it, they're going to have to get a karate chop from me or like my pepper gas that I have or my pepper gel that I have next to my bed. So my reasoning is like, okay, the bike is great because then I'm not putting miles on my bike, on my chain, and on my actual like drive chain on my mountain bike or my road bike or gravel bike, whatever. That's on the smart trainer. So I could definitely see like that argument as of having the actual bike, like the Wahoo bike, versus having the smart trainer. The smart trainer, however, can fold up really easily. It can save a lot of space. It's more affordable. And I will be honest, when you pair it with something like Zwift or something that has an erg setting that can increase the tension on the bike for you, you are not sandbagging that workout. Like I've unexpectedly done over 20% grades on my Wahoo kicker. And I was like, holy shit, because I used to have a fluid trainer up until about a year ago. And I was like, let me just get this Wahoo thing and just see what all this is about. And oh my goodness, I had my ass kicked. Like I literally was doing the same route that they do on professional tours. And I was hitting like 18 to 21% grades. And it felt awful, but it also felt great. It felt realistic. And I was like, okay, let me just put my head down and do this. And before I knew it, I was over this climb. And, you know, I had accumulated like over, I think, 2,500 to 3,000 feet in my bedroom, like elevation change in my bedroom. And it felt like a valid elevation change versus when I had my fluid trainer, it definitely felt different, you know. Now I will say my fluid trainer was super old, so it wasn't even a smart trainer. So it couldn't even get the added resistance. I don't know, and I need to look at this a little bit more to see if current fluid trainers that are smart fluid trainers can have when it's linked with Zwift or it's linked with Trainer Road that can increase the tension for you. I don't think it can increase the tension on the fluid trainers versus like the kicker, which is going to be using your gearing. So, but I also don't want to say wrong because technology has changed. I feel like so much, even in the last 2 years, but definitely in the last 5 years. And so honestly, you're gonna have to do pros cons with, you know, getting the bike version of like Wahoo versus getting the trainer. In all honesty, it's very easy to take your bike on and off, especially once you get used to it. As long as that back thing is fit for the tire or fit for the size bike that you have, then it works. Like I have my road bike, my old road bike on my trainer right now, and it's pretty easy. But you do still have to maintain it. I would still recommend tracking the mileage that you do accumulate on that bike because that's still drivetrain. I don't want to use the word damage, but it's still drivetrain fatigue that happens. So your service interval will still be the same. But that being said, Peloton, while I do love what they've done for the fitness industry, they can be pains in the asses to service because all my friends who have Pelotons right now are going crazy because of the Peloton boom. So they've actually had like 3 cancellations in a row with their service tech to come in. So please do keep in mind if you're considering ever getting a Peloton, you do actually have to have it still serviced in order for it to be under warranty and all this other stuff. And unfortunately, they have to come to your house to do that. You can't really do it yourself. I mean, you could, but then you lose your warranty. And there's some things, unfortunately, with Peloton that I think some folks don't understand. Whereas Wahoo is definitely like, I feel like personally, it's been a great addition for me. You know, a little bit of a sticker shock, but especially now with that deal that I posted where they're doing interest free for up to 3 years. I mean, I almost cried actually when I got that email because I was so excited for Wahoo. Because I think they realized like, hey, price is a little bit of an interruption, but if people can afford $30 to $40 a month, you know, like it's doable. It's a lot more doable. But make a pro con list. Long story short, I'm trying not to ramble. Just make a pro con list. But I will say that like I've given you a couple of options to kind of think about.
Oh, I have another question. It's
Yeah.
the interval training.
Yeah.
If you can't reach the heart rate zones, I mean,
Mm.
even I'm doing like a resistance work, I barely pedal and I still don't get in the heart rate zones.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about heart rate because sometimes, so that is the downside, unfortunately, with heart rate training, is sometimes it can make us a little bit blind to like our actual work. So I'm a real big fan of rate of perceived exertion. So RPE scale. RPE scale you cannot go wrong with. And the reason I love RPE scale is because, you know, maybe I apologize for the non-menstruating individuals in the room, but like maybe you're menstruating, and everyone's energy level is different, like dependent on a certain time of month. Or maybe you just had crappy sleep. Kids woke you up, because they had a nightmare or something. I mean, who knows, right? Or the dog had diarrhea. Like maybe you just had crappy sleep. So your performance is already going to be maybe a little bit lower than it was like last week. So I like rate of perceived exertion because your 80% when you're feeling crappy might be your 70% on the previous week when you were feeling great. So, I like using the 8 out of 10 scale, or to me, like it's easy to think in terms of percentages. So 8 out of 10 would be like 80%. So 80% effort or 90% effort or above, like 10% is all out sprint. I would say sometimes not looking too much at heart rate. Like sometimes I think we get a little bit dependent on this. I just put the information in there because I know some folks really want that. Like they want to hit the data point. But honestly, Rebecca, if you're trying hard, if you're already trying hard to get to your heart rate, then you're already trying as hard as you need to in order for you to get to that place. Okay. And especially in that short 40-second period of time, like not everyone can probably get to that rate, or that heart rate rather, in the 40
Mhm.
seconds, unless you're
Okay.
completely like redlining, so, and usually it's
Yeah,
easier
no.
outside, honestly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to
Yeah,
know.
I wouldn't worry too much because you're still going to get that stimulus with doing the intervals regardless, as long as you're putting forth a good effort. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's even days like maybe this will make you feel a little bit better. So on a Wahoo Kicker, you can change the bias when I have it linked with Zwift. So sometimes I'll change the bias because man, my coach is smoking crack sometimes. She wants me to hit like 550 watts, and I'm like, no, this is not happening today. Or 530 watts, I think was recently. And so I'm like, bias down, bias down. And honestly, it's the same thing. And and she and I have talked about this endlessly. Is like I'm still getting that same stimulus. So I might not be hitting the watts goals, but let me tell you, I'm still being worked. Still being really worked. And that's what matters, is that you're doing the high peaks followed by whatever it is. Or what you'll eventually see too is some tempo work. So you're going to be working at that steady cadence and steady rate of perceived exertion and power output for like, a few minutes at a time. And then we're going down into recovery and then doing tempo. And tempo stuff is where some discomfort can certainly happen because you're holding at a certain threshold for you. Okay. So yeah, you're still doing work.
Okay.
Last
Good to
call
know.
for questions. Yeah, of course. Anyone? And Rob, don't worry, you'll get the copy of the beginning of when I was talking about like goals and what to do when shit goes sideways in your life and all this stuff. I'm happy to see you because I didn't know what you looked like. But Tom was like, yeah, I'm gonna refer a friend. So oh, hold on. I can unmute you.
I don't
There
know
we
what I
go.
look like either, so it's all good.
Are you wearing a UW jersey sweater?
NYU.
Oh, NYU. Okay. I just saw what looked like, and obviously based on
It's the purple.
part.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had to ask. Yeah. I was like, well,
It's the Fighting Violets.
okay. Okay. Is it really for NYU?
Unfortunately, yes, that's what they call themselves.
I didn't know that, unfortunately. Plays.
That's
No,
what we
I've
are.
actually had friends that have gone to NYU and I didn't know that.
They were
Huh.
NYU'd.
Yeah. And the one was particularly because she went for acting. So yeah. But she's lived there. We graduated in 97. So she's lived there ever since like 1997. She's a
Kids.
Manhattanite. I know. She's a
Yeah,
Manhattanite. She can't leave.
That's where I grew up. I couldn't wait to
Yeah.
get out.
Oh, that's so awesome though. I'm glad to know that. That's where you're from.
Mhm.
Any other questions? No? The first one's always a little bit longer. And then the next ones will be a little bit more succinct. Okay. But I'm glad everyone was able to spend some time tonight and chatting. I mean, you can't tell I love talking about this stuff. So I mildly give it away. But yeah, anytime you all have a question, seriously, reach out in the group chat. There's just gonna be one day a week on Sundays where I'm not really checking in because I try to just rest my eyes from looking at tech. So, but other than that, even Saturday morning, I usually check in just to see if anyone sent in any questions on Friday. But yeah, I'll always answer any questions that you all have. Okay, I'm only a message away.
Cool.
Cool. All right, awesome. Good seeing you, Fanny. Good seeing everyone. Rebecca, Sarah, Sandra, Erica, Pia. Expecting the next couple of days to get a copy of this on YouTube. It will be a private video. I'm just gonna make that private to you all. So if you have the link, you can access it. These won't be public for everyone. Okay, we have to be exclusive somehow. All right, excellent. Well, have a beautiful evening, everyone. And enjoy your tamales, Fanny, if you're eating tamales. I don't know.
No, not tonight.
Okay.
Cornbread and chicken and rice.
Cornbread. Sorry, I'm from the South and I can't help it.
I love cornbread.
I was just looking at someone's food blogs the other day and they had cornbread with their like a grandma's chili. And I was like,
That
damn,
was
I don't
me.
even know what grandma. Okay, well, I didn't want to give away anyone's name, but like I don't want to call anyone out. Like if you can't tell, I used to work in a HIPAA field, so I like to keep things private. But yeah, it's one of those things where I okay, so Rebecca, I saw that and I was like, damn it, I want to ask her for grandma's chili recipe.
CJ just
Well,
made
I can just tell you, I tried my first attempt at soaking beans per Sarah's recommendations, and she left out the whole cooking part of it.
Oh
Let's
no,
just-
were they hard?
Yes. I was trying to. Grandma's recipe always says to get the can.
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
how long do you soak the beans?
Oh, I did like 3 days and still.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I have bean
That's
issues with
dedication.
my autoimmune. So
Oh,
I was
then
just
yeah.
trying to like
Well,
ferment them out.
Yeah, and that's why I was kind of wondering. I was like, well, what was in those grandma's chilies? Like
Yeah, so let's just say that there was a point where my husband's like, you should never eat that again.
Dang it. I lost something funny because my damn AirPods died. And now I'm going to have to watch the replay.
It's all right. No, CJ just made the cornbread. Well, actually, he just made everything from scratch, but the cornbread was just like less than 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago.
There we go. Oh, well.
I have a very good grain-free cornbread, so if anybody ever's interested.
He's from Virginia, so whenever he makes food, I'm happy.
Virginia?
CJ's from Virginia.
I had no idea. Oh, man. I'll have to talk to him next time because wait, I can talk about Southern cooking. So.
I love when he makes his crab cakes.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I didn't know what seafood was until I met him.
Especially like a true authentic like Maryland style type of crab cake. That's going to be completely different than like any other state. I mean, no offense against other states that are represented in this group, but
I never liked barbecue until I tasted his Virginia like minced barbecue.
Okay.
See,
now I'm a Kansas City fan, so I'm like a Kansas City type of barbecue fan, just because my partner's from there. So
Q39 in Kansas.
Okay, nice.
So I love that restaurant.
There you go.
I'm with you.
That's the popular one new.
Yes.
Well, it's lovely seeing you all, but I must go eat. So
Yep. Nice to see you guys.
yeah, good to see you. And
thank you.
I'm gonna try to, just as a heads up, I need to gauge kind of how things are with the pandemic and stuff like that. And how comfortable people would be doing like a social ride, maybe like once a quarter or I don't even know, like once a month, something. Because I also feel like there's a fair amount of us that are in the Denver Golden area where we could potentially meet, for something, but I also don't want to do something that's going to make folks uncomfortable. And of course, winter is obviously also coming, but if there are folks who have a gravel bike or something like that, and they can maybe ride year round, or are open to riding paths or greenways, and it would just be something fun. Like this is not going to be a Hammerfest or anything like that, because I don't want that to be the case. Because if it is a Hammerfest, I won't be able to talk with my vocal cords.
RP of like 3, maybe.
What'd you say?
I said a RPE of maybe 3.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like 3,
Maybe.
maybe 4, you know.
No, 2,
Um,
maybe 3.
Okay. But just so like we can all obviously talk to one another, you know. But I'm also just trying to play it safe. So because I know yeah, and like there is still a pandemic going on. But and I know like most of us are whatever, vaccinated, whatever your status is, it's totally up to you. But you know, I just want to keep everyone safe too. But I also probably should talk to like my lawyer about that too. Like, is this okay right now during a pandemic? Because I'm actually, this is new to me. Like what's possible. But if it is just a friendly get together, you know, then I'll just have to see kind of what he says about that. So just know I'm thinking about it. But it's also like ooh, what's everyone's comfort level? So yeah. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good seeing you,
All
Chris.
right.
Yeah. See you guys.
All right. Have a beautiful night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.